Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt
And
Roast.
I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to our reaction and review for the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 7. It is crazy to think there's only one episode left, given what we know is apparently going to happen in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, we're going into this review. We have not seen the preview. Our preview
Yep.
will be up tomorrow for you guys, where we will be discussing what is coming up in the finale. But for now, with one episode left and with what we know of sort of like how this all began,
Yeah.
are they really setting it up? Do we have any ideas of who's actually going to be there doing this to the guests?
Here's the crazy thing. I think Mike White, for better or for worse, depending on your perspective, maybe you wanted a little bit more just of a narrowing down at this point. He clearly did not want that, because I can sit here off the top of my head and give basically like three very distinct scenarios as to how all of this ends up playing out at the end of the episode. And I just think that this could careen in a number of different directions. Guy Talk could be involved. Guy Talk may not be involved at all. We could end up seeing our friends from Vladivostok back. Like, there's so many different outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be Tim. There are a lot of outcomes, but I have a tinfoil hat on where this is going to be going, of who is doing the shooting and why it's happening.
I'm very curious about this because I have one too, and we will get into a lot of theories as we go into this review. Before we do, though, be sure to hit that subscribe button because, as Jess noted, we will have a preview for the next White Lotus episode on the way. We also have theories, and The Last of Us is coming to HBO basically the moment that the White Lotus is done, and we are going to have so much coverage getting back into Joel and Ellie and that world, and my love of Pedro Pascal. Like, there's so many great things coming there. So hit that subscribe button so you guys do not miss out.
We are also covering The Pit, which is starting to round near the finale over on our Patreon. It is the only place that you can get those reviews, those video reviews. We're also covering Bosch Legacy over there right now as well. And it's a great way to be able to, you know, help support us here at the channel. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. We very, very much appreciate that.
Okay, so let's talk about Guy Talk. You brought him up.
All right.
So we saw him at the fight start to piece things together with Valentin and his friends, your guy Vlad, that they are behind the robbery that kind of made Guy Talk feel like maybe he's less than, that he wasn't good at this job. I mean, Mook, this wasn't a great episode for her. This is really making me not like her. I don't think she treats him very well. I don't think she respects him the way that she should. You can do better, Guy Talk. But what I think is going to end up happening is we ended up having this real speech on their date with Guy Talk where he was just saying, listen, like, I don't think I'm going to end up being one of the bodyguards, and I'm okay with it because I just don't feel like I'm a person who wants to hurt other people for any reason. It's just not me. It's not what I'm about. I don't want to do that. And I think that, you know, my own strong moral compass is enough for me. And while she's like, yeah, it's good to have that strong moral compass, but also this, that, whatever, that's when I was kind of out on her. I was like, okay, either you like him or you don't. You want him to be something that he's not. And with how much he likes her, and now that he has seen who's involved with it, tinfoil hat, I think that he's going to go into work, he's going to get his gun, and he's going to confront Valentin about it. It's going to turn into a fight. Shots are going to get fired. People are going to get killed by accident.
I think that's something that there's a very, very good chance at, because I think we could be seeing a scenario here where Guy Talk gets just a little bit over ambitious with his, I want to please Mook. I want to show Mook that I can be this. And okay, Mook, you stink. I'm sorry. I do not like you anymore. And now, Blackpink fans, I am not saying this about Lisa. Do not come for me. I am sensitive. I am soft. Do not destroy my... There are very few things that I am afraid of as much as K-pop fandom. So I will say that.
The actress is great. It's the character she's playing is supposed to not be that likable at this point.
She's on my top 5 least likable characters on this season list. No, but let me make it clear. I do not have her on the level that I have Fabian, who is not helping his case at all over the course of this episode. We will get more into him and his performance.
And his Kendall Roy moment.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on. But yeah, I'm thinking that what you're saying about guy talk may be somewhat accurate. The part that I'm just struggling the most with at this point, and this is the kind of hilarious part about where the season is going, is I think both of us think that guy talk is going to end up being involved here. The part that I'm struggling with the most is who is he going to be involved with? Because, okay, here are a few different outcomes here. You know, one of them could be sort of like yourself, like you're sort of spelling out here with Valentin, or maybe one of these other people shows up at the resort and things go awry that way.
Yeah.
I also thought, okay, because Belinda did not immediately accept that offer from Greg may hire people to come down there because he's worried that she's not going to accept it at this point, and he gets really, really desperate. Or this could be a situation where Jim ends up hiring people to take out Rick after everything that happens. It's kind of risky given that this is Jim's own hotel, but I think no matter the outcome we're talking about here, because guy talk, you did not deliver on your responsibilities the first time around, I can see you being like, I'm Rambo, I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna do it, and then you not gonna do it, and you're gonna end up killing somebody, and we're going to be very upset about it.
Yeah, I think he's going to try to force Valentin to confess, and it's just not going to go the way that Guy Talk is going to hope that it's going to go. And I think this is all just going to be a bunch of accidents with Guy Talk trying to do the right thing, that, you know, he missed it the first time, he's figured it out now, and he's going to try to do the right thing, and it's just not going to work out the way that he wants.
I think tonally, both for the White Lotus and also for this season, that feels like the most realistic outcome, because a lot of the commenters have talked about this, and we've talked about it too, that a lot of the deaths on this show do end up being either comedic or accidental or a little bit crazy. I mean, this show at its core, I mean, interestingly, given the Succession analogy you made, it's very satirical. And one of the big points of it is we're watching and laughing at a lot of these rich people. And I hope that it's unpredictable in some sort of way, especially more unpredictable than the reveal that Valentin and Alexei and my guy Vlad are the robbers. I am just going to pretend, as Vlad's number one defender, that he is actually just Robin Hooding this situation, and he's robbing from the rich to give to the poor. No, it's just that I'm disappointed in. That's like the only part of this episode that really bummed me out, just because it was the most predictable option. That, like, of course it's those guys. It's kind of stereotypical that it's those guys. And I think this show is typically a little bit smarter. There were a lot of fun theories, including that Mook was involved, or Guy Talk was involved. They're like all the theories were more exciting than the truth when it comes to that reveal.
Yes, so many of you guys, and we had suspected too, that this is how it was going to play out, and it did. So when it was revealed, it was kind of like, oh, okay, it's what we all thought that it would be, which was kind of surprising, because Mike White usually likes to take us along one road and then all of a sudden we're on another road, and he's really good at that.
Yeah.
So for it just to be who was the obvious choice to be the robbers, I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Well, I think the only way that can really be paid off is if we get almost verbatim what you said earlier on in this video, that because Valentin was there, because Guy Talk saw him and the pieces came together, that we do get to that moment. Then I can sort of be like, okay, it makes sense. Like, you know, is it surprising that these three are though responsible? No, but, you know, it ties together the story, and it's like, okay, I can accept that.
Okay, let's talk about Rick's big moment that turned into pushing an old guy over in a chair.
Yes.
And I think for me at first when I was watching, I was like, wow, that was really anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Oh, we've been waiting all this time. It was like, is this actually his father? Is this guy going to try to kill him? How big is this going to be? And once Rick was saying, listen, like, I really had this built up in my mind. I've played it out any which way that it could possibly play out in my mind. and it doesn't end up being what you think it is. I think there's a lot of us that have been in that spot where you're
Yeah.
like, man, I'm going to tell off so and so. And you've just like played it over and over again. And then when you're finally telling them off, you're like, this isn't going exactly how I thought, or things are a little bit different than I thought. And I'm not really feeling it the way that I thought. And that's very realistic.
Yep.
It felt very realistic the way that it was going, where he's just like, yeah, this is what happened. This is who I am. This is why I'm here. And him like, going to punch him and him flinching and him just like pushing the chair over. I was just like, yeah, this wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be because it's real.
This, I think, was brilliant. It was a perfect example of nothing that we necessarily wanted, but something that we all kind of needed.
Yes.
Because I was in the same spot as you the moment that scene ended, where I was just like, what the heck? We waited all season for that? For that? And I'm sure there's people out there who still feel really, really annoyed about it, but it was realistic in a level. Like, I'm
Yeah.
glad Rick didn't end up taking this guy out. I'm glad that we didn't get some immediate answer as to whether or not, oh, is Jim his real father? That theory's been out there for a
Yeah.
while, and
Yeah.
or is it something else? Like, I'm glad we didn't really get that much, because this is much more true to life, is that you don't get everything you want or expect. No, I think a lot of us all have this moment where the sky clears when we're in the middle of some sort of like big quagmire, and suddenly things just become that much more apparent as to who we are and what we're supposed to do. And I think that's really reflected in everything that is going on with Rick in this scene. He walks away from it. You can immediately see his demeanor change a little bit. And you even see something on Walton's face that you haven't really seen most of this season, which it feels like there is occasionally a hint of a smile. I've even heard Walton say, and we love Walton, but that he
Yeah.
was pretty miserable filming a lot of this season. And not that he is like some method actor or whatever, but everybody else gets to have such a great time with their material. You just have to sulk around and hold snakes, which you're terrified of in real life. This was not a good Walton. You finally got to have a chance to have a little bit of a good time, but I'm not talking about anything that you did afterwards with Frank, because that did not look fun at all.
Oh, Frank, man, you fell off the wagon so hard.
Yes.
Oh, I felt so sad watching that all unravel the way that it did. And then seeing Rick with the women, with the drugs, with his friend. I was like, oh my goodness, we're sort of in this situation that Chelsea was in a couple episodes ago. Was she going to do something? But she didn't. And now we're here with Rick. Rick, just go home to your woman. Like,
Yeah.
something may be brewing over here with Chelsea and Saxon as well. Let's pull that apart. It was very strange to sort of see that unraveling the way that it did. I mean, we've seen Chelsea really pushing back at Saxon over and over again this season, being like, you're soulless, there's nothing to you. Rick is my soulmate, he is my guy. And actually having the conversation in this episode where it's like, well, why? Like, why is he the guy? Why is it not me? Why is it him? And her explaining it, where, yeah, it's not about money. And she's just like, it's not just we're soulmates. This idea of her being like, I'm here to save him. He is miserable and feeling, all this grief, and I'm sort of the hope and the positive beacon. I was like, oh no, this is not the reason to be with somebody. You're not soulmates because you're soulmates. You're here because you want to save him. And that is not the basis for any good relationship. That's not good at all. And so there was part of me that was wondering if she was really starting to look at herself to see that for herself, that maybe this isn't the right reason to be with someone or to be with Rick, to be here to save him. It's just not right. So by the time we see Saxon later being like, oh, I'll walk you back, okay, I'm soulless, I have nothing. We saw the conversation with his dad, man, I have nothing, I am nothing. For him to open up to Chelsea and say, I don't want to be nothing. I would like to be something else. Like, can you show me a little bit of you and some of the things that you follow that make you you and have a soul. I would like to have something like that. And having that moment between them, and of course it was short-lived because he ends up touching her hands, which is a very intimate thing to do with somebody, not just kind of like jump into bed, but like touching someone's face, touching someone's hand, very, very intimate, where there is that moment where you could kind of see it on her face where she was thinking about it.
I think there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to unpack with Rick. Like the emotional turmoil with all these characters. It's all starting to get really mixed in with each other. I think with Saxon, like a very big question to kind of wonder about is like, okay, is Saxon really interested in all of this stuff? And I think he is now. After everything that he's gone through with Loki, I think he's still Saxon. Like nobody changes overnight. Like that's something
No.
that this show has hit upon many, many times. I think he does want to evolve, especially because it's connected further with his relationship with his dad and everything that he saw earlier in that episode where he knows something's wrong. His dad's not admitting to it. So he's in the midst of this like really huge identity crisis. And then at the same time, you have Chelsea, who I think is starting to maybe fall into an identity crisis of her own, because maybe this isn't just applicable to Rick. Maybe this is applicable to everyone, where she wants to feel like she is just a savior for every single guy she ever comes across, or even just other people in her life, that this is the way in which she feels good. And that's not really great for a healthy relationship, because it also does raise this other interesting question now where we see Rick, and yeah, Rick, you need to just pick up the phone and talk with your woman, do something else here. But yeah,
Go home.
yeah, you're not explicitly cheating here. We don't see you like kissing any of these women. You're just kind of sitting there with a weird look on your face. It's just a situation where maybe you come back to Chelsea and then you have sort of healed your soul a little bit, and all of a sudden it may not seem like you need her to save you anymore. What does she take from that then? If that's what she's really interested in, is the very thing that in theory is going to bring you closer, is that going to then tear you apart? Is she then going to look at Saxon as like the thing that she needs to save, and that's going to spark a relationship there?
Yeah, it's either she's going to move on to the next person she feels that she can save,
Yeah.
or something is going to change in her as well, which would be the thing that could save her and Rick. That if Rick now has peace and he doesn't need saving anymore, and she doesn't need to save him anymore, then they can actually just look at each other as two equal partners that are in this together.
Okay, I want to ask you guys in the comments, and I want to ask you this too, is that are we ever going to get a clear answer as to who Jim is to Rick? Is this it? Are we just going to be left wondering, okay, maybe he is a father, maybe he's nothing else. If he was his father, would he have said something? Or are we never going to get it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because we saw Jim repeat his mother's name like with this sort of shocked voice, like he knows who she is. So it still is, all theories are still on the table, guys. This could still be actually Rick's dad, where he shows up later and is like, hey, I've come to tell you this, by the way. Or maybe he is just exactly what she said he was. He is the man who killed Rick's dad, and now he's just an old man that's just doesn't have anything left in the tank, and that's where it is.
I think there's such a big dramatic either or here, where I've said for a while that I don't think it's Rick's dad, that I think it's exactly what Rick has believed it to be. But the tricky thing that goes along with that is, if that is the case, it feels like there's a 0% chance Rick's going to be able to stay at this hotel anymore, that he's going to have to go back there, get Chelsea. They're going to have to end their vacation immediately before somebody shows up and takes them away. But if it is his dad, maybe he will be like, you know what? I forgive you for what you did. You know, I abandoned you, so I'm going to let you continue to stay here. Maybe there's some sort of way to work through that.
I think if it's Rick's dad, we will get that answer because it's not left ambiguous enough for me to leave this thinking after that conversation that that could be his dad. Like it's maybe 5%. Like if we don't see him again, I'm leaving the show thinking that he murdered Rick's dad and that he's not his father. after
Yeah.
that conversation. But if he is the person who just killed Rick's dad, I would be okay if we don't see him again, that he is just what Rick saw him as, is like this feeble old man who just doesn't have it in him to kind of do anything anymore. He's just going to push his chair over
Yeah.
and that's all he is. And there is no real threat. He's not going to come after him. That he doesn't seem like a guy who hired somebody to kill Rick's dad. He killed Rick's dad, but now he's a million years old and he's just getting pushed over in his chair.
My dream, and this is not really a tinfoil hat, it's just my dream, is that it was just all about Rick finding a source of healing more
Yes.
so than who Jim necessarily was. And that we move into the
Right.
finale and I get my shipper dream come true, and that we see Rick and Chelsea run into each other's arms. Everything is sweet and romantic and they have a happy life. This show is cynical. That's probably not what we're going to get. It's just, I can't help but root for the two of them.
I really root for the two of them, but I'm going to be honest. There was a moment that I was rooting for Saxon and Chelsea as well. There's something very lost in both of these people that felt like very temporarily was an equal with the two of them, where she was kind of teaching him a bit about spirituality. He was accepting of learning about that as well. It was so brief, but it felt like two people on equal footing.
I will say this about Patrick Schwarzenegger. You are now my fourth favorite performance this season. And because I think you've done a really, really great job with this character.
Oh, he has.
Like, number one is obviously Goggins, because I'm biased and I will appreciate anything he does. But then everything Parker Posey says makes me laugh. Everything Amy Lou Wood does with their face makes me laugh. Like, her entire series of facial expressions while Chloe was telling Saxon about the thing with Gary, it was just, she looked appalled, but at the same time she couldn't leave. So she was just like, I can't even do it because I can't do her face.
It was just, that whole conversation was so strange because I couldn't tell if this was a for real or
I know.
if this was just really Gary Gregg wanted to kill these brothers because, you know, Locke didn't show up and Chloe was like, oh, where's your brother? Oh, he's not here. All right, well, I guess come on in then. I was just like, okay, well, she's trying to keep him there later. It's one of two things. What she's saying about Greg is true, which I just don't think it is, or they're waiting to get him alone to kill him.
Okay, here's my tinfoil hat for it now. I think it's a situation where she really just, because it seems like Chloe really enjoys playing games. Like, that's something that's a big part of her character at this point. And I think she just wanted to make him as uncomfortable as humanly possible, because this is probably a part of the arrangement she has with Gary. Gary, ironically, was sitting there watching the whole thing and talking about watching, and he saw how all of this was going. I think she just wanted to mess with him, to make him feel really, really queasy and uncomfortable, because Chloe, you are also not a good person. There are so many people this season who are just not good people. I think she sort of recognizes, okay, this is the sort of guy he is. If I bring this up to him, it's going to really, really freak him out. And then mission accomplished. Gary's going to know there's nothing more here. I'm still with him for whatever reason that is.
Okay, everybody, Greg makes you the offer, $100,000 to keep quiet about murdering Tanya. Who in the comments is taking that money? Matt?
No. Okay. Well, I'll let you answer before I go into my spiel.
Sure, I'll take the money.
Okay, no, I'm not taking this money.
The thing is that I feel like unless I can actually just get away, which, you know, Belinda's in a position that I don't think she really can. And like, this is the problem, is if he really did this, which he did, that Belinda knows that he did this. So the options are, don't take the money from someone who killed someone and then they're probably going to kill you, or take the money and just move it along, or take the money and tell somebody after you've left Thailand.
okay, I'm not going to be a Boy Scout here. I'm just going to be honest.
I
Here's
don't
what
know that I would take the money, but I do know that I would not want to upset somebody who probably murdered somebody while I'm in a country that, no one's listening to me. I mean, she went to try to talk to Fabian about this. He's busy trying to get his musical number together. Nobody's there to actually help her. It feels like she's not safe.
she's not safe. But here's where I struggle with it a little bit, where it's just like, yeah, if you don't take the money, you're not in a good position. You
You're
only
probably going
have
to get killed.
yeah, Zion's a little bit delusional about this whole
Yes.
situation, thinking that he can protect you. Why is he only offering $100,000? Like, if I'm being totally honest here, if I'm Belinda, you got to treat this like Shark Tank. You got to be like, okay, for $250,000, and you give me an 8% investment in my massage business,
In
I
perpetuity.
I will go ahead and take this. But no, it's just like, look at this dude's house. Look at
Right.
his boat.
Right.
Look at all of the money that he was able to just randomly get to Thailand not that long after Tanya conveniently died and was able to evade the authorities for so long. You're only getting $100,000. That is chump change. It takes a lot to start a business in this economy. And I right, people, this is ridiculous.
No, I totally agree. I thought that was a really small amount of money
Yeah.
for what he's asking her. Like, I know he's kind of like, I didn't do it, but Tanya would have really wanted this. But it just feels like that conversation is where he basically admitted that he did it. And
Yeah.
that was the minute where she was just like, I can't in good conscience take that. And I understand. In good conscience, I wouldn't
No.
want to take it either. However, being in the situation she's in where no one's listening to her, she's not safe there. Here's this rich white guy who's killed somebody, basically being like, take this money and be quiet, or else. I'd rather just be like, you know what? I'm just going to take this money, and once I can get out of here, I will deal with it.
I think at the end of all of this,
She doesn't have to spend the money. She can always give it back.
yeah, she does have options. I think that Greg there's so many issues with what he does here, starting with the fact that, yeah, it is only $100,000. And I know it sounds like I'm being hung up and being ridiculous about this, but
I agree.
but
He wants her to keep quiet about a murder.
Yeah.
$100,000 is nothing.
and it's also, this shows me how small he thinks Belinda is, that $100,000 is going to
Yes.
change everything for her. So in that sense, if he's admitting guilt, which he is, and he should know that he's admitting guilt by making this offer to her, he should also be more recognizable of her financial situation and what is really life-changing. It is extremely condescending that he has only offered that much money, and that's actually speaking
Yes.
to something much larger at the foot of this show.
100%. Even Zion was like, oh, cool. You could take that money and take the year off.
Yeah.
It's not life-changing money. It is not enough money
No.
to keep a secret
No.
that's that heavy.
Belinda, what you just need to do at this point is you need to go back, talk to Hot Guru Guy again. He can help you. He will find a way. You guys can leave the resort, protect each other, start a new
Leave.
business. There are some other options, but I'm glad that we at least have this dilemma. And because she's thinking about it, that does still leave the door open that Greg Gary has hired people and he's behind what happens at the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't feel that great that she's thinking about it. I
Yeah.
think it is that, she is thinking about possibly opening up a spa here in Thailand, and she definitely can't do that if she doesn't find a way to square things away with Greg Gary where he feels good about it. And that's why if I was her and I'm like, okay, I have a man here that, I really like, and I'd like to pursue this relationship. I, want to open up this business. I'm going to open up this business with him. Then me and Greg Gary have to find a way to be able to stay here together. Then I don't have that many options, because turning him in is just not going to turn into anything.
I think what we all just need to remind ourselves is, remember what Alexandra Daddario's character did in season 1. Like, we don't always get the ending we want with
Right.
this show, and this might be the case. with Belinda. But as we transition here into the three friends, or I don't know, do we call them friends now at this point? The conversation between
Frenemies.
the frenemies, we had this talk where Fabian comes over to them and makes this grand news that he is going to be performing tonight. This was the ultimate narcissist on narcissist situation where I don't know who is more obsessed with themselves, Fabian or Jacqueline, because Fabian, you don't need to tell everybody that you're performing. They will hear you sing later and they will probably leave once you start.
Yeah, it really was giving me the Kendall Roy L to the OG vibes where I was just like, oh no, this isn't great. Like we don't need it, but we kind of do.
Yeah, and somebody even mentioned this in the comments that this actor is like an accomplished singer in real life. And it's like, great for him, the actor. But that doesn't mean that Fabian is accomplished on this show. Right. I would rather listen to Kendall Roy rap at this point than have to listen to this guy sing again. But ultimately, we see this falling out between these three sisters, which I think is a long time coming. Jacqueline refuses to see anything for as it really is. Kate supporting Jacqueline or supporting it. And I think just a lot of that comes down to she's the one with the money. She's probably the one who's helped supply the trip in a lot of ways, and it's easier to side with her. And then Lori has had enough, as we have all been waiting for a very long time.
These people need to stop being friends.
Yes.
Like listening to Jacqueline basically be like, well, I'll be the bad guy. I'm always the bad guy. It's like, yeah, you are the bad guy. Like, you're doing this to your friend. You didn't need to gas her up with Valentine and then snatch him away. That is not friendship behavior. You didn't have to do that. If you just wanted to be with him, then have her go off with Vlad or somebody else. There were other guys there. She didn't have to be mean. So her and her whole like, oh, I guess I'm the villain. Yeah, you are the villain.
So self-righteous. And we eventually get to, Lori ends up going to the fight, which, first of all, out of these three dudes from Vladivostok, you chose the absolute worst one in Alexei. Alexei was always the worst one. This is what you ultimately decide on. Now, what's interesting, beyond the bedroom scene being very, very funny, as he continues to list off, it's like, do you have PayPal?
Right.
Cash App?
It's like, oh no, this is where
Venmo.
it's going.
I just wish he had 10 more minutes of him just listing various payment social media apps to her in bed. Her escape was really funny, but she did see some evidence as to Alexei's side business. And so another possibility emerges from all of this is that maybe they're going back there because she knows too much and that she is going to be a target moving forward.
Maybe. I mean, he didn't actually see her see it. And I mean, yeah, she knows there was a robbery, but is she gonna care enough? And I think the answer is no.
Yeah, I think right now her priority is number one, getting back to the White Lotus, and number two, probably just trying to leave after all of this nonsense.
Yeah, it's time to end this trip. It's just these friends, they're not friends anymore. They just need to go back to their own lives and move it along. It's okay to not be friends.
Yeah. This is how great this season is that we are 30 plus minutes into this. We're having a great time, and we have not even talked about the non-Saxon members of the Ratliff family, including Victoria's prayer in bed.
Oh my goodness.
Piper has a terrible time being a Buddhist. Parker Posey saying the word Buddhist is the funniest thing of all time. I'm sorry.
No, she's great. But I will say that this was a really interesting episode for Piper as well. Because having that conversation with Locke, where Locke's like, you know what? I think I'm going to be here too. I think I'm going to stay and I'm going to try to figure myself out as well. And seeing her reaction, which was not what he thought it was going to be. He thought she was going to be like, great, let's do this together. It made me feel like she is very serious about this, that she doesn't want her family there. She doesn't want her brother there. She doesn't want anybody there. She actually wants to fully immerse herself into this. And the way that that happens is without a family, that she is fully immersed. She doesn't have to worry about her brother, her mom, nobody. She is just there to learn and be part of this fully. And she can't do that if Locke is there.
This was a brilliant twist. I know I've said brilliant multiple times in this video. Maybe it's just because I'm so frustrated by the twist that wasn't brilliant, but I just think this was really smart.
You just didn't want it to be
I
Vlad, your
didn't want it to
guy.
be flat.
No,
I
I
mean, I'm
didn't
I'm
either.
still heartbroken, but I think what made this so effective for me is that I had sort of tinfoil hatted this whole season thinking that Piper was eventually going to bail on this, but she was going to bail on it just because she comes from this life of privilege and she had just convinced herself that she wants to do this, but when she realizes it's not as nice as she probably thought it was in her head, that she was going
Then
to leave.
Victoria was right.
Yeah, and that's not ultimately what's happening here. What's happening here is more like you described, where it's like she actually was legitimately interested in this as her own experience, and if Lucky doesn't say this, then she might still feel that way. But now that Lucky is like, I want to stay too, then maybe she is going to find some completely different adventure. Locke may end up staying there because he doesn't want to face his own trauma, and he
Mhm.
might think that just sort of finding inner peace, which would be very useful to him,
Mhm.
it's still not actually confronting what happened and what he did.
Yeah, and I mean, my hope is that because this does seem like something Piper really wants to lie to her whole family to be able to get there,
Yeah.
that she can just be honest with Locke and say, you need to go home. This is my journey. This is my thing. I appreciate you staying here tonight, but this is not your thing.
Yeah, and that's
You're using this to hide out. Like I'm using this because I believe in it.
the entire family may be one of the most repressed families I've ever seen in my life, because every single person except maybe Victoria, though, you've had this theory about her being an informant and like, there might be more to her, but all these other characters, they all just don't want to tell each other things. Like we have Tim, who finally somebody picks up on how weird he's acting, but
Yeah.
not wanting to talk to Saxon about anything. Luck not wanting to talk about what happened. Saxon not wanting to talk about what happened. Piper not wanting to have a conversation about not wanting Locke there. It's all so messy. And of course, in the midst of all of this, Tim is still thinking about some particularly awful things, but the gun is no longer in his villa. And
It's
yeah,
not, but it was interesting that he was thinking about these things and then he went for it. And this
yeah.
is kind of the first time he's gone from just thinking about it and then waking up from his daydream or whatever, being like, oh, okay, whatever, and moving it along. This is the first time that he's like thinking about doing this to Victoria, thinking about doing this to Saxon, and then was like, I'm going to go and get that gun.
It's a pretty big breadcrumb for the finale, because
Yeah.
now it's basically telling us that, okay, he might actually be fully capable of it. And yeah, maybe once he actually had it in his hand, things might start to roll a little bit differently, but it just feels like this was a really enormous clue. And man, if that gun was still in there,
Yep.
you would have made Duke even more upset than they already are, writing their statements of grave disappointment to you, Mike White. White Lotus. Okay, I have.
Duke, guys, man, just chill out. Nobody thinks that your university is like bad because he's wearing a Duke shirt. Guys, have a little bit of a sense of humor and just let the show be what it is. Nobody is connecting it. I didn't even realize that Duke was having a problem until like 5 minutes before this video when Matt told me about it. He's like, oh, yeah, did you see what's happening with Duke? I'm like, why are they upset?
Okay.
What is their problem? Oh, he's wearing a shirt and all this is happening. I'm like, Duke, you guys need to relax.
This is my favorite Off the White Lotus headline story because it's so silly.
So dumb.
Here is the whole origination of it, because here's why Duke is so mad, because they were so afraid that they were going to lose in March Madness, and everybody was just going to meme that scene of Ratliff wearing the Duke shirt with the gun, and they were going to be just all that. It's a joke. It's a show.
It's a joke.
Get over it.
You'll be all right. At least people are talking about you.
Do you want to go to Duke or North Carolina? Are there Buddhists there?
Oh my God.
Okay, I'm done with
Are
the
you?
Victoria for now, for the finale. But no, this, I mean, my one major beef aside, this is a fantastic episode. So much good stuff in here. I am so excited to see what happens in the finale.
Yeah.
And hopefully more twists and turns are on the way.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for watching this White Lotus review. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We have so much more coverage coming, including a preview for the big finale. And
Yeah.
you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description below. We're covering exclusively there, as Jess mentioned, The Pit finale.
So good.
It is an amazing show. One of the biggest surprises of the year. We're having such a good
Bryan
time.
Cranston's daughter is in the show. I had no idea until like yesterday that who she was. I was just like, oh, I don't know who this actress is. She's amazing. Oh, it's Bryan Cranston's daughter. I'm like, she's still amazing.
This has been the weekend of revelations. Like I was able to surprise you with Duke, and you were able to surprise me with Bryan Cranston's daughter, and I fell out of my chair. But
I did too when I learned that. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
I was shocked. But yeah, we're having just an amazing time covering that on Patreon, and we're also covering Bosch Legacy over there. Thank you guys so much for your support, especially our patrons, and we'll see you here next time.